Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for What We Do in the Shadows Season 5, Episode 7, Hybrid Creatures. We will always be honest with you guys. This has been a very good season. I would say one of the better seasons they've done. This episode didn't really work for me as well as any of the others so far this season. It had some problems, I think, just from the premise on. And while there are some funny moments, while I have never wanted Dunkin' Donuts more in my life than at the conclusion of watching this. I don't know if Dunkin' didn't have to pay for this advertising, but they probably appreciate this advertising.
Yeah, pretty much like Better Call Saul and Cinnabon,
Yeah, no kidding. It's just
right?
like there were some fun moments, but I think it relied too heavily on look how good our effects team is with creating all of these hybrids, and they did look really great.
Their FX team is so good. Take your flowers.
Yeah, like you guys deserve your flowers for what you were able to pull off on this episode with the budget that you guys probably have compared to like 95% of the rest of TV.
Mhm.
But that was most of the story. There wasn't really that much that went beyond that. And I think if we look at a lot of the other stories on the show that have sort
Mhm.
of relied on effects and things like that, it's usually in service of something that's really funny or really ridiculous. Here it was like, oh, look, there are some hybrid babies that Guillermo has. Let's look at what they're up to. And that was kind of it.
Yeah, this was my least favorite episode of the season, and I think it makes it a little bit harder too because that last episode just hit on all cylinders. It was so good, huge reveals, and then to kind of go into this episode where there wasn't really any real movement on that story except Laszlo was like, I throw up my hands, I'm done. The science isn't working and trying to help cure you. Sorry for your luck. It was just like, okay, well then what are the other stories? And they just didn't hit for me. Yeah, there was funny moments.
Yeah.
Special effects team, amazing, 10 out of 10, but they just didn't go anywhere.
Well, we'll get more into, what worked, what didn't. But before we do, be sure to join our Patreon. We've got a link in the description below because every Tuesday night, we chat with you guys in a live stream. We talk about what we do in the shadows. It is a very, very fun time. If only we had Nadja there who was delivering us a fine assortment of baked goods, some gluten-free ones for you, then we
Yeah.
could have all been very, very happy. But no, thank you guys so much to everyone
Thank
who is
you.
supporting us on Patreon.
Okay, let's talk about Guillermo's story and sort of all these hybrid babies and all these experiments
Yeah.
that Laszlo was doing. We started the episode with Laszlo telling Guillermo that he's done, that there's nothing he can do any further. He has tried everything that he can, and Guillermo's just going to be stuck. He's stuck in this. There's no curing him, there's no helping him. Sorry for your luck. Now I need you to take all of these experiments out the back and get rid of them, sort of thing. And at first, when he said that, I was like, I think Laszlo's testing him. So that's what I thought was happening. I had my tinfoil hat on. I was like, he's testing him to see if he's capable of actually like going through with killing something that maybe he doesn't want to kill, because as a vampire that can happen, that you're gonna be up against having to kill somebody that you may not want to kill but you need to feed or something like that. I thought there was a bigger purpose to it, and it turned out no, it was just, I don't want to deal with it, so get rid of these guys, like take them out back and get rid of them.
It's a reminder, I guess, that Guillermo, he has a big heart. He doesn't want anything bad to happen to these creations, which,
Yes.
as we've noted, they do look really cool. Like, there's a lot of different weird variations. I will say the one I probably enjoyed the most was like the goat Guillermo hybrid, which was, of course, eating everything, which is a reminder that goats will eat you out of a house and home. They will completely devour your entire life.
I am completely fine with this. I would have a goat in a second. Listen, I have a
No.
bunny And
No.
my bunny ate the entire bottom off my ottoman on Friday
I
night. I've got pictures over on our Instagram, Matt and Just TV, of what she did.
yeah.
But a bunny will eat your house to dust. So, like, I'm fine having a goat because I already have a bunny.
It's an interesting take. I
You saw what
I
she
saw what
did
the
to
bunny
that
did.
ottoman. She has also eaten a hole
Yeah.
right through my bed. Like, I'm just
The goat is
saying,
like 10
goat,
times bigger than the bunny.
bunny will eat your home to dust. If
Okay.
you're gonna get a bunny, be ready.
Yeah, yeah. The all of the creations were interesting and fun, and they clearly had a good time coming up with that.
I think my favorite was Binky, and I was glad that Binky got saved.
Like I'm happy for the hybrid creatures that they figured all of this out.
Yeah, having him bring them to a nursing home as like service pets and stuff. It was really cute seeing the, goat Guillermo eating a bingo card and
Yeah,
getting a petting. I was like, okay, it
yeah,
all worked out. And then Guillermo was like, yeah, of course, I kept one. I got Binky. He's gonna stay in the koi pond. No one will notice.
yeah,
Really, no one will
yeah.
know.
That's
Probably not. But it was a good ending to it where Laszlo thinks he took care of them, but really he took care of them.
yeah. It's like there's a wholesome element to it that I appreciate. It's not a story I necessarily needed. It's not one that puts the story forward in any real compelling way. And I think the bigger, we've talked a little bit about this already, but I think this episode kind of underscores what is one of the larger problems this season is just that it feels like Nandor has been sort of relegated to like a supporting character, whereas I don't know, in the first 4 seasons, if you ask me who was the star of What We Do in the Shadows,
It's Guillermo.
I would have okay. I would have said Nandor. Like I would have said that I like Laszlo the best. I am Team Okay, I know. I understand. I understand your displeasure at me
It's
for.
Nandor.
Okay.
However, for me, who's the actual like star of the show? It's Guillermo. I mean, he's the go between all the vampires. He to me has the most interesting story all the way through from, him wanting to be a vampire to him doing this and how everybody's reacting. Like he's the tent pole of this family. But yeah, as far as the vampires, I mean, well now Guillermo's kind of in that,
Yeah.
but him aside, it's Nandor. But yeah, this season it feels like they just haven't had a story for him because a lot of his stories are normally connected to Guillermo, but because Guillermo is kind of hiding out a little bit from him because like, oh, I don't want him to find out my secret. Nandor is lost this season.
Yeah, he just doesn't have that definite of a plot. And, his story in this episode is basically like teaching with the vampire Colin Robinson, which does produce, a couple of interesting moments. It's just that we have seen so many energy drains from Colin Robinson this season, not that long ago, with him and the campaign and all of that sort of stuff, that like seeing it happen again so recent just didn't really work as well for me. That part of the story didn't really get going until Nandor ends up being at the museum and starts to realize that the museum is basically of him.
Stolen his luggage.
Yeah, like
No,
that was
that was
fun.
all really fun and funny. And what I really got out of it more than anything, and what I've gotten out of this season is just that Nandor and Colin's relationship as friends is actually developing, which is kind of nice to see because Colin was always kind of on the fringe for the first while. It takes a long time. Nobody wanted to be around him because he can drain them. And this season, this episode, last episode, that's not happening. Colin's actually giving back to Nandor. He helped bring him back to life last episode. This episode, he's like, oh man, they've got your history wrong. Let me rewrite that for you and make it that, you're the coolest guy in town kind of thing, which I thought it's really endearing.
Yeah, this is one of the more endearing episodes, probably, for just this is how much certain characters care about each other. This is how much Guillermo cares about others. It also just didn't push a plot forward and just felt like there were some storylines that just were lacking a little bit in the humor department. And
Mhm.
It's like with Nadja. This Nadja story was tailor made for me because I love donuts too much.
So good
I
donuts.
know, and it's just like I got a lot of humor out of learning about this and how this woman was apparently banned from Dunkin' Donuts for being a little bit too weird, and the visual at the end of her just like lying down on the table while these people are just like hand feet, like that was really funny. But I mean,
That payoff was funny.
it was also the same joke, basically told like 8 different ways over the course of like 5 minutes, however long the storyline was on screen.
Absolutely. It was, Naja is really trying to get rid of this hex, which has been going on all season.
Yeah.
She, notices this little sort of passage at the end of this picture that's sort of like you need to fix the people, that you burned. She takes it literally that she's like, oh, when I was, at school, kids were, awful to me, so I burned down the school sort of thing. So I need to start teaching people to be able to, get this hex off of me. And she starts teaching this night class where she meets up with Helen, the witch woman, the magic woman,
Yeah.
the Magic Johnson woman. Where I was like,
Yeah.
at first I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Where she's like, listen, I can help you. But we know how Nadja feels about witches. She is like, no with the witches.
Yeah.
No way. So, but she's desperate. So when we've got Helen, the magic woman Johnson, who's like, I will help you. I need this and this and this. And then at the beginning, I was like, okay, this could be really interesting. But as soon as she starts talking about donuts, I was like, okay, so this is her real thing, is she wants to be served donuts. It went on too long to get to that punchline at the end where she's laying on the counter and the attendants are feeding her donuts.
Yeah, we didn't ultimately really get anywhere with Nadja and the storyline with Nadja and the Hex, which has been going on for a while. And it does sort of also bring up the question of like, where's the guide in all of this stuff? Because like the guide is in the poster for this season.
Yes.
Like, she's in the theme song now. Like they've made this effort to kind of show that she's more of a part of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there have been full episodes where she either hasn't been around or she's been around for like a minute or so. Like in the urgent care, she shows up, but it's like very, very brief.
Yeah. And she was in this episode so briefly with that picture where Nadja was like, oh yeah, there's this thing at the bottom of it. And that was it.
She's just, if you're going to make her a larger character, you gotta kind of find a way to mix it up. And I know you don't want too many characters on screen at the same time. Like, I get that. That does make sense. But she's been tied into the storyline with Nadja already.
Yeah, and I think I was expecting, this was my tinfoil hat the whole time, is Nadja doesn't have a hex, and that the guide has sort of kind of made this up so that she could have an opportunity to make a friend with Nadja, that the guide is having a really hard time breaking into this group of vampires. She has said it, like it's extremely hard to break into a group of vampires. She's been around a while. She still can't break in with them. That now this hex has shown up, that it always felt like the guide made this up so that she could be friends with Nadja. However, there hasn't been enough of the guide kind of trying to manipulate that situation or fan that situation towards herself, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen with that, of how they would be able to use the guide more. Because she is a great character.
Like, I like the guide a lot. And I think that I liked your theory. I thought that theory would have been really fun to play out, because how is Nadja going to react to all of this? Like, I'm sure she will be angry given that she's wasted all of this time trying to figure it out. But she's also not a terrible person. I think she probably knows what it's like to feel alone, to feel like an outsider. I mean, it probably brings her back to a certain part of her life. Like, I'm sure.
Like we saw in this episode, where by the end of it, instead of killing Helen, she's like, you know what? I know what it's like to be rejected from somewhere. I'm going to make it that you're the queen of the donuts.
Yeah. And so I think she would come around with it and be okay. And maybe that sets them up for a larger friendship in season 6, which we already know is coming. Now, here's the MVP Nandor moment of the episode. And this is just very, very, it was just barely there, but he was sort of talking about, I am going to give you all knowledge. And he's knowledge on the board, I believe was spelled NOLEDGE. Nandor, you have been around longer than all of these other characters. I can understand you misspelling something, but you have to at least like get on the board. You didn't even. This is the most misspelled word I think I have ever seen.
It was so funny. That part was so funny. It really was up there with "Do you want to write banana?" which is my favorite, funniest moment ever on the show.
This is why we're missing out with the word Nandor, because Nandor is just. He has probably the best one-liners out of anybody on the show. Like even
He's
if
so funny. He's just such a dum-dum.
he is such a dum-dum, and now we are in this situation. It's hard to say this. There's not that much left this season. Like we really
Oh,
only
I
have
know.
a handful of episodes, and with that, it's like here are the things that absolutely have to be tied up. Like everything we've already said with the guide, if she's
Yep.
involved, and the hex and all of that. I think you have to have Nandor know the truth by the end of this season. I
Mhm.
don't think that's something you can really draw out into season 6. Like maybe we don't get Nandor's full reaction, but I think he has to figure it out. And I think then the question mark comes like, how is he gonna figure it out? Like how's that gonna happen?
Yeah, I mean, too many people in the house know about it, and that's the thing that I'm the most worried about is that he's gonna walk in on Guillermo doing something, either floating, flying, moving something with his mom. Something is going to happen where he's going to walk in on it, and we're going to see like Nadja in the room and Laszlo in the room and Guillermo doing this. And Nandor's going to be like, oh, cool. You guys knew he did this. He did this behind my back. You guys knew, bye. And that we're going to end up sort of at the end of the season with him just being like, wow, like I thought we were all in it together. He's going to be really hurt. I think he's going to be more hurt than he is angry. Like I know Naja was kind of like, he's going to be so mad at you. He's going to kill
Yeah.
you. I think he is going to be crushed. And that will bring us into next season where they're mending their relationship and really having a more sort of frank discussion of how much Nandor and Guillermo really care about each other and that they really do need each other.
Nandor, if you are feeling really down about all this, I would like to extend you an offer of friendship. I will go to the movies with you. We will have popcorn. We will have a good time. Just don't bite me. Don't drain my blood.
He's not doing that. He's not turning anybody. He gives the promises and then nothing. He's an empty promise, Nandor.
That's fine. You can be an empty promise Nandor with me. But okay, well, we'll wrap this video up now. We'll see where everything goes from
Yeah.
here. But of course, join our Patreon. We've got a link for you guys in the description. Thank you so much to
Thank
everyone who
you.
has supported us, and we'll see you here next time.